It is one of the top matchups in Week 10, Ohio State versus Penn State, the rivalry, Ryan Day versus James Franklin. Both men, listen to this, Avery. Both men combined against 10, combined against top 10 teams in their careers, 5-23. This is a game that both teams need, but only one winner. It can only be one winner. Ohio State, I want them to win this game, and I forgot to put on my hoodie, but never mind. Ohio State, what concerns me about them is their offensive lineman. It was an abysmal performance against Nebraska, and if you're Penn State, you're going like this. You're seizing the moment. So the offensive line is a big question mark for this game. So James Franklin, James Franklin has problems with Ohio State and Michigan for years now. He can't seem to get over the hump. So what is your take on this matchup?
You're right. Against top 5 teams, James Franklin is 1-12. And the fact that Penn State is ranked higher, mainly because they played more difficult teams. But you're right. This is like a literal must win for Penn State, because now with the college playoff coming into effect and being shaped more, Penn State losing, they're not knocked out, but their chances of still getting in is a bit tough. Ohio State, on the other hand, it's the same way. It would be more difficult for Ohio State if they lose. But this is one of those games where it's interesting, especially at the quarterback position. You have Will Howard, who is playing for Ohio State, who is from Pennsylvania, and you have Drew Allard, who is the quarterback for Penn State, who is from Ohio. And I like these interesting matchups. I'm like, you're playing a team that you probably, grew up, following and watching and possibly going to games before you started your football career, your college football career. But for Penn State, I also look to see Tyler Warren, the tight end, be a key player in this game. But I think you're right. If you're the Penn State defense, you're looking at that offensive line like, a fresh cooked steak. You want to put that on the grill, you want to cook it, you just want to season it very well, and then you're just going to take a bite out of it, and it's going to be, game over, and you're just going to savor it. So I think this is going to be a close game. I think it's really going to be down to, mental errors. Make sure like no mental mistakes are completed on either side of the ball. But you know what? I agree with you. This is James Franklin just can't seem to win that game. Penn State has a 7-game losing streak against Ohio State. But it's just working for Ohio State right now. Now, their game with Wisconsin wasn't pretty either, but I'm edging out Ohio State, but I'm gonna see this as close as it can get. I see a 1-point victory for Ohio State, but I'm gonna go with like 28-27.
Close enough. I have Ohio State 24-23, so hopefully this game turns out to be a good one. Now, the other one, number 18, Pittsburgh versus number 20, SMU. This is a pivotal ACC matchup. Pittsburgh is 7-0 for the first time since 1982, which Dan Marino was the quarterback. They haven't been 8-0 since 1981. So Pittsburgh, they blew out Syracuse in what was a statement game. Their defense, 3 pick six in the first half, which was crazy. SMU, they were fortunate to win last week against Duke. The fact that they had 6 turnovers and they still won is mind-blowing to me. I liked what Pittsburgh head coach had to say in the press conference in terms of rankings. The way he responded to me, it was like, don't talk to me about rankings. Like, We don't care about that stuff. Maybe he does, but he was probably downplaying it. But I liked his attitude in the press conference and the way he turned his team around, going from 3-9 last year to now 7-0 is impressive. Um, but I have Pittsburgh winning this game 30-20.
I like that score. That's a respectable score. As I was thinking about the games to pick, looking at this game, especially after SMU defeating Duke, it's interesting. This game is an 8 o'clock game
Wait,
by,
Avery, let me just say one more thing. And it's gonna be interesting to see SMU's quarterback going up against testing that Pittsburgh secondary. Go ahead.
yeah, I completely agree with you. It is interesting. This is a Saturday night game, and I think it is kind of worthy of a Saturday night, versus the Penn State Ohio State game, which is at noon, but a noonday shootout kind of works well for both teams too. As I was doing my research for this game, and looking at what the predictors were saying, they have SMU at 70% versus Pitt at 30%. And when I look early in the week, I always think to see a change. However, this wasn't a change. And granted, I don't say this a lot, but at this point of the season, I kind of think Pitt is being disrespected a bit, especially after that game with Syracuse. Now, 18 is a good ranking, but I figure the games they've played so far, I think being like a 14 or 15, especially after that statement win with Syracuse, would have bumped them up more. That being said, just like their defense, has showcased their skill, their defensive coordinator, Randy Bates, is looking to use that same intensity to SMU. And I want to if you ever, we've said this before, if you ever want to root for a team, sometimes when, especially college football, even sometimes in pro football, there's just something about a coach and a team, and just when the right group of people are together, it just works. And I agree with you said with Pitt head coach, his mentality in that press conference and his mentality with that players, I think it's working for them. And I think how everything is going right for Pitt, I think they can continue that. Right now, they're 3-0 in the ACC, so they're like fourth in the conference. But I think this win against SMU is a statement for them, because ahead of them is, Clemson, so Pitt needs this game. And I think Pitt needs this game just like their statement win at Syracuse. It needs to be a statement win at SMU. So, granted, we're not the biggest fan of blowouts, but I think it would work in Pitt's favor, just like Syracuse. Defense, take control. When you get the opportunities, capitalize on the opportunities. But also, Eli Holstein, the quarterback, 5 interceptions this year, but 17 TDs. He's got over 1,800 yards. Look for him to just I think, be conservative with his throwing, but when he's conservative, it's going to make plays. So I look for Pitt to go down to SMU and just take care of business, if you will. And I see them winning this game 35-18.